Okay. So I'm going to do a little bit of cloud introduction. After that, I'm going to do a bit of introduction of the 5512F, and then I will just pass over the rest of the switches that we have and some products comparison. I already put the whole presentation into the handout section, so you should be able to download it. Okay. So I assume that everybody already knows our cloud with everything that we can do with it, and has some idea of our cloud switches, access points, our mobile app, and our cloud platform. So about our new switch. So our new switch, the 5512F, where the F stands for fiber in this case, and not for full power. It has fiber switches, fiber SFP slots only. The only RJ45 connector on it is for the serial ports, so that's not a network port. If you want to use Ethernet on it, you need a Ethernet SFP, so or copper SFP, or whatever you want to call it. So an SFP with an Ethernet jack on the or port on the far end. It's a non-blocking switch. Actually, all our switches are non-blocking, so why we ever mention it. And this switch is meant to be an aggregation switch. So it has its ports. It has some LEDs on it, and for the power, and but also if they're connected or not. And you can check the speed and if the link with those LEDs, which are sort of hidden between the SFPs. Like most devices, it has the reset button, and like I mentioned, it has a serial port, console port. These are SFP plus ports, by the way, so they are 10 gigabit ports, which is also why it's called the 55 something. So one of the things that I noticed was that the smart fan in it has a magnetic bearing, and I think that's good. That should mean that it will last forever. And another important thing to mention about this device is it is what we call a half rack. I'm not sure if other people also call it half rack, but at least in our case, we call it a half rack device. So what's half rack? Well, it means that you can put two devices side by side. When you receive the device in the box, you will get 3 brackets with it. You will get a short ear, you will get a long ear, and with the short ear and the long ear, you can connect one. So with one short, one long, and connect in a 19-inch rack. Or you also get a join bracket, and you put one of the join brackets to the end of the device. And then if you get a second device, it will come with its own join bracket and its own short ear, and you will connect up those brackets to that device, and then you can join the two join brackets together to get a sort of single 19-inch rack thing which will have more SFP ports. Of course, you still need to connect those two together somehow, either directly with a passive optical cable or with fiber SFPs. Another thing that I need to know is this is a layer 3 switch. So it will be the first switch that will have multiple IP interfaces, maximum 4, and those IP interfaces are so you will have multiple VLANs, and each of those VLANs up to maximum of 4 will have an IP address, and that will mean that the switch will be able to do routing between those VLANs through those IP addresses. And for this functionality, it will support ARP entries specifically for this. So it still has its MAC table for other stuff, but specifically for this, it will have a small ARP table. So this is about routing. You can add some static route stuff into it. And of course, it will also do IGMP already, but that's a standard feature that we also see in most of our other devices already, I think. I also noticed that it will have quality of service stuff, including quality of service mapping. So mapping based on the 802.1p priority bits. That's nothing strange, but it can also do it on physical port or even on layer 3 on the DSCP TOS bits in the layer 3 packet. So this is sort of how we envision this device to be used as an aggregation switch, and from which the switch other access switches will be connected up together. So you will have something like your 10 gigabit backbone to your aggregation switch. And then on the access switches, that's where you will have most of your network devices connected. But still, you might be able to, or you might, if you want to, you can still attach some servers, of course, directly to your aggregation switch. So I will do a switch to the demo part of this. I see one question about stack feature. In this, there is no hardware capability for stacking as such, so there's no stacking slot. So in this sense of hardware stacking in with a separate connector to connect the backplanes of the switches together, the answer is no. It's simply impossible. From the perspective of managing it by a single IP, that's already a fact, because we have our cloud, and the cloud is a single IP to manage those devices. In the other sense, if you will be able to create LSCP groups with multiple switches together. So usually, if you have an LSCP group, LSCP groups are should always be within a single switch. But with a stacking, it should be possible to have LSCPs groups that are created with over multiple switches. I haven't heard or any plans to do that. But it is something that I am asking for continuously, the stacking feature to have LSCP capability over multiple switches. But again, from this perspective, stacking like managing from a single IP, that is what our cloud is already doing. So yeah. So I'm going to sign into my my account. Go to my switches. The switches online. Oh wait, there's one thing. Usually I just click through, but you can have, if you just click somewhere in this line, it will show a status of the switch. I don't know if anybody recognizes what I have done here. So I have, this is my uplink port, to which I'm connected to it. And I have two other groups. So you can see on the colors, these are 1 gigabit connected. So although the ports are SFP+, you can have SFPs in them. And these two are 10 gigabit. I will let everybody think a little while about what's happening there. From the view of the cloud, you will not see any anything special. It will the layer 3 stuff simply did not make it to the cloud yet. The intention is to have every capability in the switches that are in there, not just on the CLI, but also on the local UI and also on the cloud. But yeah, well, as with all software development, choices need to be made. So there is some priority and some stuff gets in later. Again, with a switch, like with all our switches, the stuff that is not exposed to our cloud, you can still manage it by going directly into the switch on its local user interface. The good thing is that our cloud at least is much more complete than what we previously had with EZ Master, where you could not even configure VLANs on your switches. So we will see the usual stuff here. As you can see, I have unlocked the UI. Here also I have some diagnostic tools, but the diagnostic tools are a little bit more limited than before. See that I have some ports up here. And there's even some activity coming. I can do my my packet capture on ports if I wish, and start the packet capture for 10 seconds, which takes a while before it starts, and then usually about 12 seconds or so before I see it starting, and then you see the counter that it is doing the packet capture, and when it's done, I will get my downloads and I can open my downloads. So getting back to what I did before, you will see a lot of stuff, but what I did is I just looped ports 1 and 3 together, and I looped ports 5 and 7 together. So I created a loop, and the spanning tree stuff has recognized the loop and has blocked one of the ports. So ports 1 and 5 are up or something, and 3 or 7 are blocked because of the spanning. But in this way, at least I could show that there was something happening on the switch. I can see all the devices that are in my network. Even have an ARP table. There's one thing that doesn't work here, because there are no Ethernet ports, there's no cable testing. So that's something that you have to think about. I saw this the first time. I thought, hey, why is it gray? Yeah, but of course it's not. It doesn't have pairs of wires in this case. Maybe in the future we will have overview of the SFP status here. Okay, so the standard diagnostic stuff is all available, and all the other things. Here again, you can see. So ports 3 and 7 are blocked because of the loop detection. But they're still a link in the sense that there is speed, but just the traffic is blocked. And the other stuff is all the same as with our usual devices. Nothing special here. So let me now move to my local UI. Oh, I need to figure out my my password. Oh yeah, I think it's this. So again, you will see most of the same stuff that you have on the other switches. We will have something additional here. We will have some display about the modules that are in the device, if there are any modules in. And it's telling you some of the information of the modules, and it's depending on the type. So in ports 5 and 7, I have a passive optical cable that doesn't have any intelligence in it, so I don't see anything. But here I have 1 gigabit SFPs in it, and you can see the temperatures, voltages, and stuff like that. For now, I assume everything here is normal. I do not look at these values that often, so it is obviously working, so it should be okay. So that's on the that part. Then we have some layer 3 stuff. And you may notice that we have routing information protocol. I'm not totally sure why this is in, but you also have SPF added here. And my colleagues told me that they are looking for sites to have this feature tested. Anyway, these are the layer 3 protocols that you will not have seen in our other devices yet. I think they might be enabled in some of our other devices, like the ECS 5512, ECS 5512P or FP. But for now, this is the first switch that has these capabilities. For the configuring of the multiple IP addresses, I'm still not. That's something you do over here. You can just add a network, tell it to which VLAN it is connected, and give it an IP address in that VLAN if you want to. You need to add the subnet mask, of course. And in this case, if we're talking about this feature, this is routing. So same as what the router does. The difference is that routing in switches like these is not done by the CPU plane, but it's actually doing by the network chipsets that is in there. So you need a high-end network chipset to even be able to do this. And then you will have this also added. Yeah, although our platform itself is very IPv4 minded, our switches do and our APs do support IPv6. There's no problem there. Okay, yeah, well, as this is the most important difference here, so the system settings and the layer 3 protocols which have shown, these are the main things that are added new to this switch, except the switch having 12 SFP plus ports. If anybody has any questions or curious about the other stuff in the interface, just let me know. And for the other parts, the only thing that I have left is a very long presentation. Like I said at the start, it is in the handouts. You can download it with everything else about our cloud managed switches, different switches we have. The SFPs we have, also the passive optical cable or direct attach cable, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, these switches, I think, have exactly the same chipset as this one. So I expect that they will have the same features in the future. And these are all the other switches that we have. Yeah, well, it has the standard features that switches in this class have. Of course, yeah, like I showed, you do not need to cloud manage this switch. You can just do it all locally, or you can do the part that you can do by the cloud with the cloud, and then the other stuff that is not in the cloud yet on the device itself. Remember that if you configure anything on the local device, which is also configured on the cloud already, like VLANs, the cloud will overrule any of your local settings. As soon as the device asks the cloud, hey, do you have my settings? It will push the settings, and those which are implemented on the cloud will be pushed and overrule the ones that are on your device. So, of course, PoE, extended mode, stuff like that is not supported with an SFP only switch. I think yeah, well, these are the normal applications that we have. This is also an application that you could have if in this case you have Ethernet, but maybe there are cases where the devices are all connected through fiber. That is a possibility. Maybe the devices are spread apart, or there is a lot of interference and they switch to fiber to not have that problem. Then you could connect the devices to SFP ports, SFP plus ports. And this is the other scenario. And in that case, you do not use any Ethernet, but it's all SFP plus to SFP plus. The PDF also contains this comparison of all our switches, just for your reference. So you can look at this if you want to later. This overview is pretty complete. It has all the latest switches in it. Oh, and there's also a competitor comparisons if you want to look at it, but I don't know about the exact pricing of the devices, so for me it's hard to compare. But anyway, if you need to compare in the PDF, there's a competitor comparison too. Yeah, well, more. So this device is also using a Switch network operating system version 2.0 with all the features that includes. Anybody have any questions? Let me get. Oh, my presentation just died when I scrolled too far. Questions? So I'm not sure about the speed of the layer 3 switching, because that, the layer 3 routing. The switching itself, of course, it is standard, and I don't have any access to MikroTik high-end switches. The idea of having a layer 3 switch is that the routing is line speed. In how far they get to that, you have to remember that there are two ways to do routing. You can do routing like in your router gateway. In that case, everything is done by the CPU. The CPU receives a packet, decides what interface to put the packet on, and sends it on its way. And in the case of a NET router, it might also even change the MAC addresses and the IP addresses in it. And a normal router would only maybe change MAC addresses and not IP addresses. But for the for a switch, a layer 3 switch, if it's supported, it should be supported. The routing of the PETICs should be done by the switch chips themselves and should be close to line speed. So I'm not sure about the MikroTik devices, how far they come in the neighborhood of line speed. If they are very far off line speed, then it's probably because they're doing this by CPU. But I'm pretty sure that in our case, this is being done on chip, so it should be close to line speed, almost as fast as just bridging the packets from port to port in the usual way. There is a plan for a very, very big switch with something like 48 10 gigabit ports and 40 or even 100 gigabit ports. I know that that's somewhere in our roadmap, but I think it depends on demand if it will actually appear. So if you need a big switch like that, let your sales contact know so that they can push for it. In any case, I do not expect that big switch before Q3, Q4 of this year at the earliest. All our switches, besides having the capability of being cloud managed and also being managed in the local GUI, they all have a full CLI. So if you think Cisco, breach Cisco and more like that, and you are only happy when you can type in the commands, yes, we have SSH, we have a terminal, and you can we have a CLI, and you can configure everything by CLI. Still, I do not like CLI, but that's my personal idea. That said, if you need to roll out lots of switches with exactly the same settings, CLIs, just making the script once and then copy pasting it up and pressing enter is of course much easier than going through all the different web pages to make it work and forget some of the web pages, making it not work. But okay, more questions? So this is one of our cloud switches, and all our cloud switches have they have a basic 2-year warranty, but if you register the device or if you buy from a partner, yeah, well, I assume you are a partner, but if you are a partner, these devices have limited lifetime warranty, which means something like as long as we have it and it's not end of life, you have warranty, and then from the moment it has end of life, you will have a warranty for 1 or 2 years after that. At the moment, I have not seen any 24 ports 10G fiber devices. Again, if this is something that is needed, ask your sales contact about it, and then we can push it to our colleague. So the only bigger switch that I'm aware of is one that is 48 ports, not 24. In a sense, the whole idea with having this half-size switch is to make something that is very close to a 24 ports possible without needing to develop additional hardware. Somebody can still think of questions. Now is the moment to ask. Anyway, if you think of new questions later, then you can ask, send an email to support at EnGenius Networks EU, and let me know, and I will answer the questions there. If you feel that we have something missing in our product range, you can also reach out to me and sales, because sales usually has a little bit more power to force things than I have. At least that's my idea. These These switches, I think I should know which chipset it's running exactly. I think it's running a Broadcom chipset too, if I remember correctly, but I'm not totally sure. Broadcom RTL, one of those brands. But anyway, the software firmware that's running on top of it at the moment, it's almost all something Linux something, and of course the chipsets themselves, be it Broadcom or RTL or Qualcomm, as far as I can tell, they're all ARM based, but yeah, your mileage may vary. But to be honest, give it, I don't think at the moment, because you're not allowed to do anything Linux, really Linux. You cannot give any Linux commands usually. It's just a CLI, and the CLI is nothing like Linux. So maybe on the back end of the device, if you type in a CLI command, it gets translated to some Linux stuff. But we usually do not have any access to the Linux things anyway, so you're stuck with the CLI. But it is probably based on Linux. I'm not aware of any recent devices which are not ARM based or Linux based. Maybe it will change in the future, and we will see some devices which are not ARM based and more based on Intel or even something like RISC-V. But for now, it's mostly ARM. Okay, I think I will close this this session. We will have another session in 2 weeks, presented by Alessandro. Look out for it, and I will see you soon. And for everybody, thank you for joining.